It's that time again. It's Baggy Hi-Fi time. Greetings cats and kittens once again. Welcome to Baggy Hi-Fi, this YouTube channel devoted to record collecting and the vinyl community in the UK. As you can see from the introduction to this video, British summertime has begun here in County Durham, although I think it's been the same right across the country today. We've had some nice warm weather this week in the beginning of this lockdown period, and today it snowed a little bit, so coming towards the end of March we have snow. This is the third part of my recent vinyl finds, and I've loosely collected these records under the tags of folk, indie, poetry, and some ye olde British punk rock. So we'll begin with the loose genre of folk. This first record is by the Olde Tinkers, and when I bought this a few weeks ago in the shop in Darlington, took it to the counter, and the guy in the second-hand record store said, "Never even heard of these." Well, I hadn't really heard of the Olde Tinkers until probably a couple of months ago, and I was watching a Play for Today on 1970s Play for Today being shown on YouTube. I'm a big fan of grim up north dramas and you know, films like made by people like Ken Loach. But this Play for Today was called Kisses at 50, and it starred Bill Maynard. Written by Colin Welland, who you may remember acting in the film Kes. It's from 1973, and the music in that Play for Today was by the Olde Tinkers, and it was really poignant music sung with a thick Lancashire accent, instrumentation, banjos and acoustic guitar. So it really caught my my imagination. So I thought I'd tried to track down some records by the Olde Tinkers, and here we are, an original 1971 album on the Topic label, famous for issuing British folk records. It's in really nice condition. It was only £4. As I say, the guy in the shop said he'd never heard of the Olde Tinkers, but so this collects the album's called Oldham's Burning Sands, and it collects some traditional tunes from Lancashire, like the Oldham Chap's Visit to the Queen, In Our Town, A Fine Old English Gentleman, Peterloo, We're Off in a Motor Car. Some quite humorous tunes on here, but not for everyone, but I really enjoy this one, and I believe they did actually record a John Peel session sometime in the 70s as well. So that's the Olde Tinkers. Now I'm sure you will have heard of this next singer, Ralph McTell, of course famous for the mega hit Streets of London. I remember one of my older sisters having this album, and this is My Side of Your Window. I think this is Ralph McTell's second album, released on the 1969 on the Transatlantic label. There's that lovely colourful Transatlantic label there. I guess Ralph McTell has a bit of a reputation for being, you know, a bit middle of the road, but you know, he was especially in these early days, very much an acclaimed folk artist. Some lovely tunes on here. Michael in the Garden, I've Thought About It. Some of them are a bit bluesy, you know, you can still hear that you know, folk club background on this record, but Girl on a Bicycle, and again going back to grim up north themes, lovely tune called Factory Girl. So that's Ralph McTell's My Side of Your Window, and another good one by Ralph is I think it's called Spiral Staircase, and that's on Transatlantic Records as well.
And the moon shines bright on Charlie Chaplin, his boots are cracking for want of liking, and his own coat is mounted mending until they send him to the Dardanelles.
Now when you think about British jangly music from the 80s, you may think of the Sarah label, very small independent label run from a couple of people in Bristol, and since gained a very much of a cult following for their releases, mainly on 7-inch singles. Now I've tried to like some of the music on the Sarah label, but it really is just a bit too fey, a bit too jangly really for my tastes. But one band on that did release a few singles on the Sarah label in the late 80s were the Springfields, an American band. Most of the bands on the Sarah label were British, and the main man in the Springfields is Rick Menck, jangle pop hero of many people. He was in a few different bands. Choo Choo Train was one of them. But really, Springfields never released an album, and this is the compilation which came out last year of their singles, 1986 to 1991, released on the Slumberland label. And the insert, I must show you this insert because it does look like late 80s fanzine type cut out and paste. There's a picture of Stephen Pastel there, Bobby Gillespie, all the heroes of the time, you know, and the story of the band there. Rick Menck is a drummer and a singer and songwriter who was very much inspired by the jangly indie stuff, Jesus and Mary Chain, all that kind of Glasgow stuff that was coming out in the 80s. And but I think the music he produced is even is the equal of all that stuff, but probably even better. So it's a real good compilation here of those singles by the Springfields. Now, if you remember, or if you've seen some of my other videos, you see me talking about the band Grimm's, which featured Roger McGough and Adrian Henry, two Liverpool Mersey poets. And earlier on in the late 60s and early 70s, the band that featured Adrian Henry, the poet, was the Liverpool Scene. And I think this is their first album, The Amazing Adventures of the Liverpool Scene. They've also featured Andy Roberts, as well as Adrian Henry doing his poetry. Now, I got this on Discogs, and I wonder what the sticker was when I took it out of the packaging. And it's quite a nice touch, really, because it's the property of the Granada Television Music Department. So it was a library album. It looks like no one ever borrowed it, but I'm glad to have this album anyway. But look at all those hairy characters on the back there. I might do a needle drop of this because very underrated band, the Liverpool Scene.
Help us smash the Viet Cong, Batman. Help us show them that they're wrong, Batman. Help us spread democracy, get them high on LSD, make them just like you and me, Batman. Show me what I have to do, Batman, 'cause I wanna be like you, Batman. Flash a bat sign over Lime Street, Batmobiles down every crime street. Happy Bat Day, that's when I'll meet Batman.
And on to, as I promised at the beginning of this video, on to English punk rock. Don't really buy many punk records these days, despite it being a real formative influence in my teenage years. But I was really delighted to see an album compiling releases by, or recordings by the Prefects, who were a late 70s punk band from Birmingham. Quite short-lived. They did appear on the White Riot tour, the doomed White Riot tour, which also featured Subway Sect, the Slits, the Pistols and the Clash. What a lineup that was! But of course they were banned from many venues after the furore surrounding the Sex Pistols. But the Prefects, not really typical late 70s punk. They do sound a little bit like Subway Sect, one of my favourite early English punk bands. They, as I say, they never made a full album. The abrasive music, but not really, you know, political in any way. They did record a John Peel session. I think some of the music on here might be from that session. There's a very extended track called "The Bristol Road Leads to Dachau." That's a real grim, grinding piece of music. Some hilarious quotes on the insert here from a few journalists at the time, and from some fanzines, and very much in the DIY spirit here. Robert Lloyd, a member of this band, went on to form the band The Nightingales, who were, I think they reformed recently, but anyway, this is the Prefects Going Through the Motions compilation, came out on Call of the West Records last year. And now on to a punk garage legend, venerable English artist, Billy Childish, a painter, poet, garage punk singer and guitarist. Now this is a really nice compilation that goes through his the Billy Childish story from 1977 to 2018. It's a triple album, and it goes right back to the early days of the Pop Rivets and the Milkshakes and the Mighty Caesars, all these bands that Billy has been in, the Headcoats, the Headcoatees, and onto the Buff Medways. A lot of this music is very, very raw, deliberately so. But look at this really nice package on Damaged Goods, as I say, 3 albums. There he is, there's Billy on the back. Quite interested to read that he is an expert in yoga. That's how he can get into those positions when he's playing his garage punk guitar. So punk rock is nicht tot, and in the hands of Billy Childish and his other bandmates, punk rock is never dead in the hands of Billy. So that ends this vinyl finds video. Probably my next video will be a contest entry. Bill from the Vinylverse has got a contest going at the moment over in the US, and I need to enter that one before it ends in a couple of weeks' time. So as ever, thanks for watching. I hope you're all keeping healthy and safe, as they say, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.